Ever wonder how different cultures view death? Like, not just the Grim Reaper kind of thing, but the whole idea of it.
Yeah, it's a pretty universal question, isn't it?
Totally. And this deep dive is going to be fascinating. We're looking at Kali and Hades.
Oh, wow. Okay. So we're talking about the rulers of death in Hindu and Greek mythology, but in totally different ways.
Exactly. It's like, imagine trying to wrap your head around something as huge as death. You've got these two completely different figures as your guides.
It's not just about ancient stories, right? It's about how humans have always tried to make sense of this big mystery. Like, is death the end, or is it a beginning? Is it about control or chaos, or maybe a little of both?
Right. And those are questions people are still asking today. So we've got Kali, this incredible goddess from Hindu mythology. And she's, well, picture this. Fierce, powerful, often depicted with multiple arms.
Oh, yeah, I've seen those images.
Right. She's associated with destruction for sure, but also creation. So much more complex than just a personification of death.
Exactly. Kali represents this whole cycle of life, death, and rebirth. Destruction isn't just the end, it's making way for something new to come about.
It's like she understands that ending and beginnings are kind of two sides of the same coin.
Exactly.
Then on the other side, we have Hades.
The Greek god of the underworld.
Yeah, and he's all about order and structure. Death for Hades is the final destination, everything in its place.
Very different vibe.
Total opposite, right? So we have chaos and order personified. And get this, our source material throws them into this epic clash of the titans.
Oh, wow, like a showdown.
Yeah. Apparently there's this cosmic tremor that throws everything out of whack. It disrupts the balance of power, and these two deities are forced to confront each other.
That's a really cool concept, like this force that shakes up the cosmos and brings these two figures face to face.
Exactly. So imagine Kali's chaotic energy exploding into Hades' perfectly organized underworld.
Talk about a culture clash.
Right. What happens when these two forces of nature collide?
Well, the source material describes Kali's arrival in the underworld as this explosive event. Like, her very presence starts to stir up the souls of the dead, which, goes against everything Hades stands for. He's all about peace and order in the afterlife.
Yeah, he likes things a certain way.
Exactly.
I bet he tries to lay down the law like, hold up, this is my domain. You can't just waltz in here and disrupt the eternal peace.
He does. He tries to assert his authority, establish some boundaries. But, Kali, being Kali, laughs in the face of boundaries.
Classic Kali.
The source material describes her energy as this uncontainable force, and it starts to really shake things up down there. We're talking souls getting stirred up like a storm, total chaos.
So how does Hades deal with that? He seems like a real by-the-books kind of guy.
Right. He does what he does best, though, strategizes.
Oh, interesting.
Tries to use what he has,
Okay, like what's his game plan when faced with this kind of chaotic energy?
Well, he's got that helmet, right? The helmet of invisibility.
Makes sense. Stay hidden, maybe she'll just go away.
Yeah, something like that. Plus, he has his staff.
The one that commands the dead.
That's the one. So he's not totally defenseless.
Still, talk about a clash of styles. On one hand, you've got Kali, all raw power and instinct. And on the other, Hades is all about strategy and control.
And this is where those different approaches to death really come out,
Because it's more than just a fight, right?
Yeah, way more.
It's like their powers represent these fundamental forces.
Exactly. You've got these two powerful figures going head to head. But the source material makes it clear it's not just about who's stronger, it's about what they represent.
Okay, I'm hooked. What's the bigger picture here? What happens as this cosmic showdown unfolds?
Well, you'd think it'd be like, a classic battle. One of them wins, the other one's defeated, end of story.
Right, that's usually how these myths go.
But this one takes an interesting turn. Instead of this clear-cut victory, there's this sense that they learn from each other.
Oh, wow. Okay. Like they challenge each other's whole worldview just by being themselves.
Exactly. It's like their powers clashing creates this weird feedback loop.
A feedback loop. Tell me more.
So Kali's chaotic energy, it kind of reminds Hades that even in his perfectly ordered realm, he can't control everything.
Death has a mind of its own, even for the god of the underworld.
Right. There's always going to be that element of unpredictability, of change, no matter how much you try to contain it.
Okay, that's interesting. So what about Kali? Does she learn anything from this encounter? She seems like a hard one to teach.
Well, even in the middle of all her chaos, Hades' resistance shows her something too. It's like she realizes that even destruction needs some kind of flow,
Full?
Yeah, like a natural order. It's not just random. There's a rhythm to it, a purpose.
So they kind of balance each other out in a weird way?
Exactly. It's not that either one of them is wrong or that one has to completely overpower the other. They both have a point.
They just need this whole cosmic battle to figure that out.
Right. And I think that's a really important message, you know? It's not always about one side winning. Sometimes it's about recognizing the value in those differences, like how those contrasting forces can actually create some kind of balance.
Wow, okay. So it's like they reach an understanding, not a truce exactly, but
More like a grudging respect.
yeah, that makes sense. They're still fundamentally different, but
But they get it. They recognize that the other one has to exist, that the universe needs that kind of duality.
that's a pretty powerful idea. But okay, we've got these ancient gods, this epic battle in the underworld.
Mhm.
How does any of this relate to, us?
Right. We're not exactly deities battling it out on a cosmic scale.
Exactly. Most of us aren't commanding the dead on a daily basis, thankfully.
Thankfully, but think about it this way. This story, this clash between Kali and Hades, it gives us two very different lenses to view death, you know? And I'd argue to view life as well.
Okay, I like where you're going with this. Keep going.
It's like Kali's way is all about accepting change, right? Like endings are just opportunities for new beginnings.
Which, that can be kind of scary, can it?
Oh, absolutely.
But also exciting, in a
Well,
way.
Totally. Depends how you look at it, I guess.
It's like that whole thing, is the glass half full or half empty?
Exactly. And then there's Hades' perspective, which is more about finding that that sense of peace, order, even when everything feels uncertain.
Yeah, like finding comfort in knowing that some things are constant, even death.
Right. There's something to be said for that kind of stability, even in the face of the unknown.
So, okay, I gotta ask, which one speaks to you more?
Honestly, I think I've got a little both in me.
Me too, probably. It's like I could see the appeal in both of those approaches.
That's the thing, isn't it? We don't have to choose just one.
Right. Like maybe it's about finding the balance that works for you, right?
Exactly. And that's what's so cool about this whole deep dive. We're taking these ancient stories, these gods and myths, and we can actually apply their lessons to our own lives.
It's giving self-help, but with like ancient gods and cosmic showdowns. I kind of love it. So, as we've been talking about with Kali and Hades, there are all these different ways to think about death, loss, even just like everyday endings. Which of their perspectives resonates most with you? And how do you see those forces, those Kali and Hades forces, playing out in your own life?
Such a good question. And you know what? To push that even further,
Go for it.
if Kali and Hades represent those two fundamental sides of death, that chaotic energy and that drive for order and control, what does your own personal death landscape look like?
Whoa, okay. You're asking us to really picture our own encounters with these forces.
Yeah. What would Kali's chaotic energy unearth in your world? And how would Hades's order and structure shape that experience? What would they teach you about yourself, about how you move through the world in life and in death?
Wow, okay, that's a lot to unpack.
It is. But it's good stuff to think about. It takes us beyond just knowing the myths and makes us really engage with them personally.
It does. It's like we've been talking about these grand cosmic figures, but now it's getting incredibly personal.
Yeah.
Our listeners are going to be chewing on that one for a while.
And that's the whole point. That's the beauty of these deep dives, wouldn't you say? We're not just summarizing old texts. We're using them to explore these massive universal questions.
And those never really go away, do they? No matter how much we learn.
Never. And maybe, just maybe, by trying to understand those big concepts, death, change, even just those everyday endings, maybe it helps us actually live more fully right now, in this moment.
I love that. Like facing those big questions, even the scary ones, the unknown ones. Maybe it brings a new depth to how we experience the present. On that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
Oh, already.
I know, right? Time flies when you're exploring the cosmos. But trust me, the conversation doesn't end here.
Never does. It just keeps evolving.
I like that. All right, everyone, until next time, keep exploring those big questions and keep diving deep.